In the bustling city of Xianglan, where the night was alive with neon lights and laughter echoed through the streets, an unusual affliction was quietly turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. People had begun to notice something strange. Their shadows were taking on lives of their own. One moment, a man would be sipping coffee, the next, his shadow would be dancing like it was auditioning for a reality TV show. This phenomenon had become a source of hilarity and chaos, with shadows engaging in spontaneous dance-offs, stealing snacks from grocery store aisles, and sometimes even photobombing selfies. In the midst of this whimsical chaos was Li Wei, a graphic designer in his late 20s. He was the kind of guy who could make the most mundane objects look like works of art. His apartment was a quirky reflection of his personality, walls adorned with colorful prints, plants that were somehow still alive despite his questionable gardening skills, and a fridge that had more takeout containers than actual food. Li Wei had a knack for humor, often using it to mask his anxieties about life and his lingering fear of growing up. One fateful evening, as Li Wei prepared for a crucial presentation at work, he noticed a peculiar sensation creeping up his spine. It started innocently enough. His shadow was twitching. "Great," he muttered, "even my shadow has performance anxiety." As he turned to grab a snack, his shadow made a daring escape, leaping off the wall and flailing around his apartment like a caffeinated squirrel. "Hey! Get back here!" Li Wei shouted, but his shadow seemed determined to assert its independence. It dove into his fridge, rummaging through leftover dumplings and half-empty soda cans. Li Wei, caught between exasperation and amusement, couldn't help but laugh. "You've got some nerve, you know that? I'm the one who pays rent." With the shadow still digging for snacks, Li Wei attempted to regain control, reaching for it like a parent trying to wrangle a misbehaving toddler. "Look, buddy, you can't just go stealing my food. We had a deal. I'll provide the snacks, you stay quiet and do your shadow thing." But the shadow didn't listen. It flung a container of takeout at him, a cold piece of Kung Pao chicken landing squarely on his forehead. "Oh, come on. Not the Kung Pao. That was my last good meal." He could hardly believe the situation he found himself in, a grown man arguing with his own shadow. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Li Wei's frustration grew. He grabbed a jacket and bolted out of his apartment, hoping that some fresh air might clear his mind. The streets of Xianglan were alive with laughter and music, shadows flitting about like mischievous sprites. But he felt out of place, a man on the run from his own reflection. A few blocks away, he stumbled upon a lively bar, its neon sign flickering like an invitation to madness. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, with patrons laughing, dancing, and completely unfazed by the shadows behaving like unruly children. Li Wei took a seat at the bar, trying to drown his frustration in a cocktail. "One shadow on the rocks, please," he quipped, earning a chuckle from the bartender. Just as he took a sip, a familiar figure swept into view. It was Jia, his childhood friend, known for her vibrant spirit and contagious laughter. "Li Wei. You look like you've seen a ghost," she exclaimed, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "It's not a ghost, it's my shadow," he replied, gesturing dramatically. "It's gone rogue." Jia raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Rogue shadows? That's a new one. You must be special." "Yeah, special in a 'my shadow just stole my dinner' kind of way," he grumbled. As the two caught up, Jia confessed that she had her own shadow-related issues. "Mine keeps trying to join dance battles at the park. I'm like, I can't dance. Why are you making me look bad?" They shared a hearty laugh, the kind that reminded them of simpler times. We should team up and figure out this shadow situation, Li Wei suggested, a spark of determination igniting within him. If our shadows can't behave, maybe we can find someone who can help. And so, their adventure began, propelled by a strange mix of camaraderie and desperation. The next day, they set out to find Madame Shen, a local legend known for her quirky remedies and unconventional wisdom. Her shop was tucked away in a narrow alley, crammed with oddities that would make a museum curator weep with envy. The moment they stepped inside, they were enveloped in a cacophony of colors and scents. Madame Shen herself was a character straight out of a fairy tale, complete with flamboyant robes, wild hair, and a grin that seemed to hold all the secrets of the universe. "Ah, the shadows come seeking advice," she proclaimed theatrically. Li Wei couldn't help but chuckle at the theatrics. "You could say that. Our shadows are misbehaving." Madame Shen leaned in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Shadows are tricky beings. They reflect our hidden selves, you see. If they're acting out, it usually means there's something deeper going on." "Great, just what I needed to hear," Li Wei sighed. "Now I have to worry about my emotional baggage on top of everything else." "Embrace it, dear," Madame Shen exclaimed, clapping her hands. "You must confront the darkness within to find harmony with your shadow. Only then can you bring it back to light." Li Wei exchanged a glance with Jia, both unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Easy for you to say," he quipped. "You're not the one with a shadow trying to sneak snacks." With a wink, Madame Shen handed them a small, ornate mirror. "Use this. It will help you see what your shadow truly desires." After thanking her, Li Wei and Jia stepped back onto the bustling street, the weight of the mirror heavy in Li Wei's pocket. He felt a mix of anticipation and dread. What could possibly be hidden in the dark recesses of his shadow? Later that night, as he prepared for bed, Li Wei's shadow began its usual antics, stretching and wriggling like it was preparing for a circus performance. Taking a deep breath, he held up the mirror, hoping for some clarity. As the reflection danced before him, something shifted in the air. The mirror showed not just his shadow, but flashes of memories, moments of doubt, fear, and missed opportunities. It was as if his shadow was revealing the parts of himself he had buried deep, the insecurities he had avoided like the plague. And as the images flickered, he felt a strange connection to his shadow, a recognition of shared experiences and unexpressed emotions. "All right, buddy," he murmured, "let's talk." But his shadow, emboldened by the newfound understanding, took that moment to leap into action, dragging him into a dark world that seemed to pulse with shadowy energy. The transition was sudden and surreal, as Li Wei found himself standing in a bizarre, shadowy landscape that mirrored his thoughts, twisted paths and distorted versions of the city he knew. "This is not what I meant," he shouted, panic setting in as he looked around. Shadows lurked in every corner, whispering secrets and doubts he had tried to forget. And then it hit him, a realization that he wasn't just fighting against his shadow. He was fighting against himself. As Li Wei stood in the shadowy realm, the air thick with whispers and echoes of his insecurities, he felt a strange mix of fear and determination. The landscape around him morphed with every step he took, once familiar streets twisted into bizarre shapes, buildings bending under the weight of their own shadows. He was no longer just a man chased by a rogue shadow, he was a man confronting the very essence of his fears. "All right, Li Wei," he said to himself, attempting to summon courage as he moved forward. "You've faced worse things than this. Like that time you tried to impress Jia by cooking and almost burned down your apartment." A hint of humor slipped through his panic, a reminder of who he was beneath the looming darkness that he noticed shadows of people he knew flitting in and out of sight, friends, family, even his old college professors. Each shadow flickered like a memory, taunting him with what he had left unsaid and undone. "I'm not afraid of you," he called out, trying to sound braver than he felt. "You're just parts of me, right? Show yourselves." In response, a shadowy figure coalesced before him, its form vaguely resembling Li Wei himself but twisted in ways that felt uncomfortable and wrong. It had an exaggerated frown, drooping shoulders, and eyes filled with a deep, brooding sadness. This was his shadow, the embodiment of all the emotions he had pushed aside: disappointment, fear of failure, and the overwhelming anxiety of adulthood. "Who are you?" Li Wei demanded, trying to assert some control. "You think you can just run off and do whatever you want? You're supposed to be my shadow." The shadow flickered and shifted, mirroring his movements but adding a dance of its own, a mocking, chaotic rhythm that made Li Wei feel like he was watching a version of himself that he couldn't recognize. "I'm you," it whispered, voice echoing like a gust of wind. "You've ignored me for too long. Look at what you've avoided." As it gestured, more shadows emerged, revealing snippets of Li Wei's life, moments of triumph, yes, but more often moments of hesitation and retreat. He saw himself standing alone at a party, laughter surrounding him, yet he was rooted to the spot, too shy to join in. He saw himself in meetings, nodding along while others shared brilliant ideas, his own thoughts trapped in a whirlpool of self-doubt. "I'm not that guy anymore," Li Wei protested, shaking his head. "I'm trying. I have dreams, I have plans." "But do you?" the shadow hissed, swirling around him, its voice now laced with mockery. "You let fear dictate your choices. Look where that's gotten you, a man who can't even stand up to his own shadow." With each word, Li Wei felt the weight of truth pressing down on him. It was painful to admit, but he knew it was right. He had let fear guide him, and in doing so, he had neglected parts of himself that craved expression. "You think you can just run off and live life without me?" he shouted, anger surging within him. "We're a team, damn it." The shadow paused, its expression softening for the briefest moment. "Team? You think so?" It circled him slowly, its tone shifting. "Then why do you leave me behind? You fear the darkness I represent, but I am also your creativity, your passion. I can be your strength if you let me." Li Wei's heart raced as he considered the shadow's words. "I'm scared," he admitted, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough?" "Then we fail together," the shadow replied, a hint of warmth breaking through its darkness. "But if you keep ignoring me, you'll never know what you're truly capable of. Embrace me, and together we can create something beautiful." Taking a deep breath, Li Wei stepped closer to his shadow, ready to confront the fear that had haunted him for so long. "Fine, let's do this," he said, his voice steadying. "I'm ready to embrace all of me, even the parts one don't understand." As he reached out, their forms merged, and a rush of energy surged through him. The world around him shimmered and warped, transforming the oppressive darkness into a vibrant, colorful landscape. Suddenly, he was standing not in a realm of shadows, but in a kaleidoscope of possibilities, each hue representing a dream he had suppressed, each shape a reflection of the person he aspired to be. "You see," his shadow, now a blend of darkness and light, said with a newfound brightness. "This is who we are. We are the fears we face, but also the dreams we dare to chase." Li Wei felt an exhilarating rush as laughter bubbled up inside him, mixing with tears of relief. He realized he had spent so long running from his shadow that he had forgotten the power it held. They were intertwined, a duo that could achieve anything together. "Let's show the world what we can do," he shouted, feeling the energy surging through him. The landscape around them shifted again, this time drawing him back to the real world. Li Wei awoke in his apartment, sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the chaos of his room. His shadow lay quietly beside him, no longer a mischievous entity but a loyal companion, reflecting his every move with a gentle grace that he swung his legs over the side of the bed, the warmth of the morning filling him with a sense of purpose. Today was the day he would embrace his shadow, share his dreams, and connect with those he had previously neglected. With renewed determination, he decided to reach out to Jia. He grabbed his phone and typed a quick message, "Hey, want to help me throw a shadow dance party tonight? It's time to embrace our shadows." As the day unfolded, Li Wei transformed his apartment into a lively venue, strings of lights draped from the ceiling, snacks piled high, and a playlist curated to inspire movement and joy. He invited friends, neighbors, and anyone willing to share their own shadow stories. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. When the first guests arrived, laughter echoed through his apartment, shadows mingling and dancing in rhythm with their owners. Jia burst through the door, her eyes wide with surprise. "Wow, Li Wei. This place looks amazing. I love it. Thanks. I thought we could embrace our shadows together," he said, a grin spreading across his face. As the night wore on, people began to share their stories, shadows that had stolen moments of joy, shadows that had tried to push them down but ultimately became catalysts for growth. They danced, sang, and celebrated the parts of themselves that they had once feared. Li Wei found himself caught up in the energy, moving with a freedom he hadn't experienced in years. His shadow danced alongside him, reflecting his every move with a playful twist, and for the first time, he felt completely in sync with it. "Look at us. We're unstoppable," he shouted, laughter spilling out as he spun in circles, his friends joining in with delight. The party reached its peak as the music shifted to an upbeat tempo, and the room filled with bodies swaying and laughing, shadows blending together in a beautiful, chaotic dance of light and dark. It felt liberating, the kind of release that only comes from embracing every facet of oneself. As the evening began to wind down, Li Wei stood on his balcony, looking out over the city. The vibrant lights shimmered like stars below him, and he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. His shadow, now more than a mere reflection, stood beside him, a constant reminder of the journey they had taken together. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he said softly, placing a hand on his shadow as if it were a friend. "I promise to listen to you from now on." With a newfound sense of clarity, Li Wei knew that life would still throw challenges his way, but he felt ready to face them head-on. He would no longer shy away from the parts of himself he once feared. Instead, he would embrace his shadow, allow it to guide him, and together, they would explore the depths of their potential. "Let's show the world what we can create together," he declared, feeling the warmth of possibility surge through him once more. And in that moment, as laughter and music echoed in the background, Li Wei understood that shadows were not something to fear but a part of the journey, essential to the beauty of life. As he turned to rejoin his friends, the vibrant glow of the night wrapped around him, illuminating the path ahead, a path that promised adventure, joy, and the beautiful chaos of life lived in full color.